At dawn, a crowd of city dwellers gathers on a steep hillock, forming an excited circle around a mother and her young child who spent the night in the open air. Their attention is fixed on the ground, where a ring of heavy paw prints is perfectly preserved in the dust. The crowd points at the tracks, speaking in hushed tones about divine protection and a woman who must be touched by the sacred. Just 12 hours earlier, many of these same people walked this exact path. They passed the woman and her crying toddler as they descended the hill, yet not one person stopped to offer water or even a glance. The presence of the predator has accomplished what the mother's own distress could not. These tracks have transformed her, in the eyes of the crowd, from a stranger to a void into a figure of worship. To find the truth behind the tracks, we have to look at the previous night. As the sun set, the city dwellers retreated to their homes, and the local priest locked the temple doors, leaving the mother alone as the forest came alive. She was exhausted, having lost everything, and her child had finally fallen into a deep sleep, brought on by hunger and thirst. She sat in the darkness, with no protection and nowhere left to go. At midnight, the silence broke. A vibrating roar echoed through the scrub as an apex predator emerged from the shadows, stalking the clearing. Survival in this moment didn't depend on a miracle. It depended on the specific biological factors that dictate how a predator interacts with its environment. If we move past the mystical explanations, we can see that animal behavior is shaped by a very specific set of biological variables. The first is predator satiation. Generally, the fuller the stomach, the lower the drive to take on the risks of a new hunt. Earlier that night, this tiger had already eaten a rabbit. The urgency for calories vanished, and its risk-taking metric dropped accordingly. For a predator, every hunt carries the potential for injury. When an animal isn't starving, its biological programming shifts towards caution and energy conservation. The tiger approached the hillock with its survival instincts prioritizing safety. It encountered the mother not as a necessary meal, but as an unknown variable that might not be worth the effort. The mother's reaction was the second variable. Instead of running, she stood her ground, screaming at the tiger and threatening to fight it with her bare hands. This creates prey confusion. Predators are optimized to chase fleeing targets. Erratic behavior from smaller creatures breaks that cycle and forces a pause. Furthermore, the terrain amplified this. Her screams echoed off the hillock, creating a compounding wall of noise that made it difficult to pin down the threat. Facing an unfamiliar scent, a confusing acoustic environment, and a target refusing prey behavior, the tiger performed a final risk assessment. The tiger's math was simple. The potential energy gain from the meal was outweighed by the risk of an unpredictable fight. It turned and retreated back into the forest. Her survival was the result of a full stomach and a moment of sheer audacity that short-circuited the instincts of a wild animal. When the mother opened her eyes the next morning, she found herself at the center of the crowd's superstitious fascination. She listened as the story of the night's events was rewritten by the witnesses, who added colorful details of divine intervention and miraculous blessings. The same people who had ignored her when she was just a woman in need were now eager to help a woman they perceived as a living legend. When the crowd offers food and water, she takes it. She doesn't correct their stories or explain the biological reality of the tiger's retreat. She allows them to see the figure they want. This new identity provides the safety and the resources that her actual life story never could. It is often easier for a community to worship a miracle than it is to address the indifference that allowed a mother and child to be left on a hillside in the first place. Biological reality is what allowed her to survive the tiger, but it was the community's need for a myth that ultimately saved her from society.